Welcome to Lured In, where we expose the scams ordinary people fall for. Today's story comes from our home country of England. Friend of the channel Emma has kindly emailed us with her story. She wants it to be told so that others do not fall for the same. Whilst it's easy to brush off scams as obvious, remember we all experience things differently. What is obvious to one of us might not be obvious to the next. Let's be kind. Rather than commenting how you would not fall for this scam, you could comment giving Emma some encouragement. This isn't just a scam story, it's a story of a woman who wanted love and how that longing was turned against her. Along the way, you'll hear about the red flags she missed, the tricks scammers use, and how heartbreak can sometimes hurt even more than financial loss. Emma was 47, a single mom living in the UK. Her life was simple: work, home, and caring for her teenage son. Her days were full of responsibility, caring for her son, working 2 jobs, and running errands for her elderly parents. But her nights? They were quiet. Too quiet. Once her son shut himself away with his games and her parents were safe and sound, sleeping in their beds, Emma often found herself alone with her thoughts. The silence of the house pressed in, and loneliness crept over her like a shadow. Emma was once happily married, although as the years went on and there had been issues with conceiving further children, they decided to split. It really is sad how she once thought she had everything but had come to feel something was missing. One evening, after scrolling endlessly on her phone, Emma made a decision she never thought she would. She downloaded Badoo. Caution: you can run into issues with any dating app, but some have poorer verification than others. Be careful when choosing which one to download should you be on this journey. She told herself it was harmless, just something to pass the time. But in her heart, Emma hoped that maybe, just maybe, someone was out there who could see her, understand her, and love her. Romance scams are on the rise, and apps like Badoo, Tinder, and plenty of others are prime targets. Scammers know how to exploit loneliness and hope. That's when she met Chris Bennett. His profile picture showed a man in United States paratroopers uniform, standing tall, radiating confidence. He didn't open with a cheesy pickup line. His first message was simple, kind, and genuine. "Hi Emma, how's your day going?" It was disarming. Emma felt comfortable. So far, she'd only received messages which she knew were scams, asking if she'd like to join a trading group, or people sending or asking for pictures that you just shouldn't send to somebody online, unless you feel comfortable with the idea of it being out there forever. She replied to his message. Soon, their chats deepened. Emma found herself sharing pieces of her life, her job, her son, her little routines. Chris remembered every detail. He asked questions, he listened. He made her feel seen in a way she hadn't felt in years. He said he was deployed in the UK on a secret mission and could not say any more. Emma thought this seemed odd, but when the next message said, "Your smile is like nothing I've ever seen before," she was hooked. Within just a few days, Chris suggested they move over to WhatsApp. Looking back now, Emma retorts how it was strange that his phone number was not British nor American, but Chris had an answer for this. A few days after the two hit it off, Emma casually mentioned him to her childhood best friend Laura. Laura listened and then raised an eyebrow. "Just be careful, Em. Have you not heard of these scams online?" Emma laughed it off, but that tiny warning, that flicker of doubt, would echo later. On WhatsApp, Chris's charm only grew. He called her darling and my queen. He sent her poems late at night and cheerful good morning messages before she even woke. Sometimes he sent short videos, him in uniform, walking across a base, showing glimpses of his supposed military life. It looked real. For the first time in years, Emma felt alive, desired, hopeful. Scammers are masters of emotional manipulation. They mirror your hopes and desires back at you, making you feel uniquely understood. Even cautious, intelligent people can be swept away. It's worth noting here that many scammers will use terms such as my queen, and many people like being called things like this, as they've not been shown this level of affection before or in a long time. Then came the news that broke her heart. Chris told Emma he was being deployed to Abu Dhabi. Emma's chest sank. She had just found happiness and was hoping to meet once her dad had recovered from his knee surgery, and now Chris was being sent thousands of miles away. But Chris soothed her fears. Distance doesn't matter when hearts are connected. They promised to talk every day, no matter how far apart they were. Not long after arriving in Abu Dhabi, Chris told Emma he'd lost his wallet. His phone service, he said, wasn't working properly too. The next day he explained that he'd spoken to local providers and the only way to stay connected was by buying a prepaid SIM card. The cost? £300. He begged Emma for help. He swore he'd pay her back the moment he returned. Emma hesitated. She didn't have £300 just laying there in her bank account. Yes, she had savings, a few thousand stashed away, but this was from when she was working 3 jobs, hoping to stash enough away so that she could keep up with her son's requests for football shoes, laptops and school trips. She was not done building this stash when her parents' health started to decline, meaning that she did not have the childcare she was used to, and had to cut her night cleaning job. Emma never liked cleaning the office toilets, never liked having to make sure the lawyer's used tissues had made it beyond the floor to the bin, but it was all for her son, who she adored. Laura's words of caution echoed in her mind, but she thought of losing Chris, of breaking their connection, and that was just too much. She logged into PayPal and made the transfer. This is a classic scam tactic. Sudden emergencies, urgent requests, promises of quick repayment. Always pause before sending money, no matter how real the person seems. That first transfer was just the beginning. Soon there were more requests. Base fees, military paperwork, unexpected expenses. Each time Chris made it sound urgent, and each time Emma convinced herself that this is what love looked like. By now she had sent almost £4,000. This was the entirety of her savings and money from income that was supposed to go towards bills. Now it's worth going back to these PayPal transfers. I'm not allowed to mention the real names of the perpetrators here. It could both jeopardise any future legal proceedings that Emma might take, but could also get this video taken down, which means that the story cannot be told. However, the person being sent the funds was not named Chris. However, Chris advised Emma that it was somebody in the military office, somebody who could receive the funds and convert the money to send to Chris's deployment account. Of course, we know that that is not the case, but at the time Emma believed it to be true. It seems so obvious here that this is not be a route that a real military personnel would take, and Emma would tell you this herself. By this point, she was so desperate to secure this connection that she was able to override her doubts with the thoughts of Chris landing in the UK to spend the rest of his life with her. 3 months in, and cracks were starting to show. Chris's grammar, brilliant to begin with, at times seemed strangely off. It seems this coincided with when Emma's savings had run out and she was only able to send £20 or £30 here or there. Chris's excuse? Well, he was in a war zone, of course, and this was not messaging for perfection, but to ensure his survival and to make sure his queen was okay. He also never accepted video calls, blaming strict military rules or poor internet. This confused Emma. She wholeheartedly bought into the idea of the military base not allowing video calls in case of things being leaked. But the internet? She'd paid a lot of money for this. And he said this would allow him to chat over video, so this did not make sense. Regardless of these internal voices, Emma tried to brush it aside. She wanted to believe. She needed to believe. One Friday night after a couple of glasses of wine, Emma was in a playful mood. Chris had just sent another voice note calling her his queen. Feeling light-hearted, she saved one of his photos, him in uniform, smiling confidently, and sent it to Laura. Her message was simple. Look, this is Chris. It wasn't a boast, more of a subtle brag, a whisper of happiness she wanted to share with somebody who she'd known forever. She had also felt envious of Laura. Did she love her as much as you could love a friend? Absolutely. Did she feel resentful at Laura, who married her high school sweetheart who could not do enough for her, who had 4 children, who was able to work part-time in an executive position due to both sets of grandparents being present? Absolutely. She was, of course, happy for Laura, but also wanted to show her that she herself could have a nice life. It didn't always have to be poor Emma, even if the outcome took a bit longer. Laura did not respond immediately, probably due to being busy with the kids. But the longer that Laura took to respond, the more Emma felt that maybe bragging about her new man to her lifelong best friend was a bit out of character. Later this weekend, Laura finally replied. Emma's stomach jumped with excitement, having forgotten that she felt out of character and wanting to see what Laura had to say. Emma opened her phone with anticipation. Laura replied with something that made Emma's stomach twist. I don't think this guy is who you think he is. Look at this. Attached was a screenshot, the same smiling soldier, but on a news site about a successful mission in Afghanistan years earlier. This man went under a completely different name. Emma's hands went cold, her heart pounded. For the first time, a wave of dread washed over her. This is identity theft in action. Scammers steal photos of real people, soldiers, doctors, professionals, to build trust. That night, unable to sleep, Emma did her own search. She uploaded Chris's photo into a reverse image tool. The results shattered her world. The man in the photo was real, but he wasn't Chris Bennett. He was a retired US Army veteran living in Florida with his family. He had no idea his face was being used to scam women across the world. Everything Emma believed in, the poems, the promises, the love, it all crumbled. By the time Emma uncovered the truth, she'd lost nearly £4,000. But the money wasn't the worst part, it was the betrayal. She cried at work, she lay awake at night replaying every conversation, asking herself how she had missed the signs. She told herself she was a fool, but she wasn't. She was hopeful, and scammers prey on hope. Emma has not yet told anybody about this or reported it. She's still processing the betrayal and trying to make sense of what happened. Emma is slowly beginning to heal. She's reflecting on the red flags, replaying the story and trying to rebuild her sense of trust. Though she hasn't reported the scam, it's vital for others to know if this happens to you, contact your bank, the platforms you used and the local authorities. Reporting isn't just about your case, it helps stop scammers from targeting others. I have provided Emma with the relevant links to report this in the UK, but I understand that she's taken it all in for now. Looking back, Emma sees the red flags clearly, moving off the dating app too quickly, declaring love almost immediately, refusing video calls, and the constant money requests tied to emergencies. Individually, they might be overlooked, but together they form a clear pattern. Today, Emma wants her story to serve as a warning. If someone you've never met asks you for money, stop. Real love doesn't demand payment. Romance scams don't make you foolish, they make you human. Share Emma's story and subscribe to Lured In to help warn others. You never know whose heartbreak you might prevent.